Hello everyone. It's Amber Carlton with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Premier Properties, and I am back with your Real Estate Basics episode 22. Not sure how we are all the way at that number, but time flies. So today we are going to talk about negotiations, negotiations in real estate transactions, what to expect as the seller, what to expect as the buyer, worst case scenarios, best case scenarios, the mindset you want to have when you're going into negotiations, and why having a professional negotiate on your behalf is beneficial to you. So let's dive right in. So one of the first things I talk to my buyers about every time when we sit down and we do our buyer presentation at the beginning of everything is anticipate 3 negotiation periods in a real estate transaction. So you have your initial, you find the house, it's the one, we want to write an offer, we're so excited. Maybe you've been looking for a long time, maybe not, but it's just telling you this is the house. So that's your initial negotiation period. You give the seller an offer, they either accept it as written, counter, or reject it. Once you get all decided, everybody signs off, you get through your final acceptance, and then it's on to the next. Hi, David. I hope to see you at convention this year. I haven't seen you in forever. Anyways, so the second period where you can have negotiations is in your home inspection. If you have a home inspection, which we always recommend, it's best to do it that way. Hi, Corey. However, especially in like the later days, just recently the market had been so crazy. A lot of the times buyers were giving that up in their original negotiation period, so you wouldn't have that. But now it seems like things are starting to ease. We should be seeing more home inspections, which is good. So that's a whole nother negotiation period. You do the home inspection with your home inspector of choice. You walk through the property. No property is perfect, not even a brand new one. They point out things that either can be done down the road or that they see are big issues, need to be addressed soon by yourself or by the seller. So then we can bring them a list and say, hey, here's what we found. It might be one item, it might be 15. On those, you really want to try to keep it as minimum and as concise as possible to not overwhelm your seller, to not make your seller feel like you're doing a laundry list. However, it's all negotiable, right? So your realtor brings the listing agent as a buyer's agent. They bring the listing agent that list that they're asking for. That's a whole nother negotiation period. So the seller can say, yep, that's okay. We will do everything they asked for. We're fine with that. That sounds good to us. Or they will say, no, we're going to do this, and this, but the rest of it, we're just not willing to do. And buyer can go back and say, okay, I didn't really want this as much, but would you be willing to do this? And we're dicing it out, right? Until we come to a mutual agreement. Or if we don't, you can cancel, get out, get your earnest money back. That's an option. And sometimes buyers do the home inspection and it's all small things that they would do later on. So they just waive their home inspection and along you go. In that case, you don't have a negotiation. But if you're anticipating 3, 1 for getting under contract, 2 for inspection, and the third one regarding the appraisal period, and you only have 1, you're going to be happy. If you're only anticipating 1 negotiation period and you've got 3 really tough negotiation periods, you're probably not going to be very pleased with how things went. And the fact that it wasn't even on your radar. Sometimes we just need to know that, kind of what's coming our way. If I'm anticipating the worst and it goes better, I'm going to be much happier than if I'm thinking this is going to be breezy and now it's been an uphill battle both ways. So things to consider. So onto the appraisal portion. If you have financing, an appraisal will most likely be required by the lender. There are times where appraisal waivers are a thing based on how recently the property sold, the buyer's ability to purchase. It's a whole algorithm on the backside, on the lender side, and it will come out appraisal waiver is an option or it's not. Banks take mortgages very seriously. They haven't always, they do now, and they probably kind of always did here. We're a little pocket of kind of a really good abnormality on like being very conservative when it comes to those types of things anyways. So we didn't really see that big of a hit during the recession the way other markets did with the predatory lending. We didn't have that as much here. Back to what I was talking about. If your bank actually says you qualify for an appraisal waiver, they're not going to do that willy-nilly. You're probably pretty good to just go with that and not pay the $750 to have the appraisal to find out it was okay anyway. Totally up to you at the end of the day. I personally, if they were to offer me an appraisal waiver, I would take it and just be good. It doesn't happen very often. I would say maybe 10% of my transactions have had them. And if you're cash, you don't have to have an appraisal. You could have one if you really wanted to be sure the value was there. You would need to write that into the purchase agreement as part of your initial negotiation period to be sure you're protected in your investment there. Yeah. So with the appraisal portion, it's not just the value. The value is one thing that could be negotiated upon. If it comes back light, is the only time it's going to be negotiated upon, because buyer pays for the appraisal, seller never sees the appraisal, seller has no right to the appraisal. So if it comes in 50,000 over, seller should never know that. If we come in at value, and usually no matter what, they kind of just say, oh, it's at value, no fixes required. Good to go. That's a happy day in the real estate world. No negotiations. You skip that third phase of negotiations that you could be facing. However, if it comes back under, now we've got a problem. Sometimes recently with the hot market, people were dealing with that in that initial negotiation period right up front, saying like, we'll cover if it doesn't appraise because we want the house that bad and we know there's 10 other offers. That's not traditionally kind of how crazy it is. So in a more normal market, it's negotiable usually. So come back and say, well, seller is willing to drop it, but they're not willing to still pay the buyer's closing costs, or maybe they'll meet halfway, or everyone decides seller says I'm not taking less than what we had here, and buyer says I'm not paying the difference, and everyone walks away at that point. All negotiation, all negotiable. So that is the third portion to think about. And with that too, with the appraisal, every appraiser has their eye out for safety concerns. So pre-1978 built homes, lead-based paint is always going to be assumed that it's there. Even if it's been painted over 20 times, new siding, doesn't matter. They have to assume that it's there. So if there's any chipping paint on the exterior, even just the trim, it's probably going to be an issue. Every appraiser is different, but it'll probably be an issue. GFCI, so the grounded outlets by water, that's another really common one we see. Safety. A huge heave in a concrete slab, especially like a sidewalk or something, that could be a big tripping hazard. That could be a flag, missing handrail going into the basement. We've seen that. So if it's anything that's with the safety of the people in and around the home, or the actual structural components of the home, that's where you can see your fixes. FHA, USDA, and VA are more critical than a conventional product. Conventional product, you in general have a higher credit score, you might have more assets. They tend to go a little bit lighter on those, probably assuming that you could do some of those fixes on your own if needed, whereas some of the other buyers, they really want to ensure that that's taken care of in case they don't have the means to do so, would be my own assumption there. And for USDA, they actually go off of the appraisal standards for FHA and VA. So USDA is like the hardest for appraisal flags. I learned that in appraisal panel this year. Anyways, totally different negotiation period. That one has a couple of things, and most people assume value, which is true, but there also are those safety concerns or structural concerns that could come up during appraisal. You get the good to go back from that, or you negotiate it out, whether it's fixes, whether you want to hold the escrow to deal with the fixes after closing if you can. Once you come to terms, you move on. Boom, you're at closing day before you know it. But just planning for 3 instead of 1 is going to set you up for success. Having a professional there advocating for you, negotiating on your behalf is huge for a multitude of reasons. One of the main reasons is tensions tend to run high as it's very emotional. It's your home. You are either buying your home and you're so excited about it and you just want it to be perfect, or you're selling your home that you might have lived in for 40 years and to you it is perfect, even though yes, there's flaws, but there's such an emotional connection there that just having a person here and a person here that are not as emotionally tied to it to just kind of keep it neutral and talk it out is invaluable. It really does help. They're just putting buyers and sellers together anymore doesn't really happen, not even at the closing table. If they request it and if everything's been good, sure, we can make it work. But one person says one thing, the buyer could say, oh, I can't wait to paint that purple wall. And all of the sudden seller is in a frenzy. It just can get murky really quick. So it's really, really good to have different people there to negotiate for you and to kind of take a breath, cool it down. Hi, Nolan. Kind of bring it back to square. There are even times where I've definitely gotten like, I can't believe that this is how this is going to myself. I don't say that to my client because that's not helping anyone involved, but where you just maybe need to go to a coworker and be like, this is the situation. I need to talk it out with you. I need to just like take a breath, calm down, get everyone back on the same page. Sleeping on it is the best thing you can do ever in negotiations. It's going to tell you in the morning how much you still want to proceed or not with the home. It's going to let you come off of the emotional roller coaster that you're on and just like decompress. Many of times I've had people being like, no, we're done. And then they'll sleep on it and they'll be like, actually, no, we really still want to do this. This is what we want to do now. So grant yourself grace. Hire someone who you know is going to set you up for success and walk you through all of this and help put you with professionals to guide you along the way too. There's so many times that we need to get a basement guy in there or a roofer to look at it or whatever it might be. And everyone's mind goes to like worst case scenario, right? Oh, it's going to be like $50,000 to fix this. Sometimes it's like 5 when you're thinking 50. So let's get someone who actually does the work in there to look at it. So, okay, maybe we can come to terms together. Maybe seller's willing to help more than we thought originally. Or maybe we have to take it on our own, but it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be. And you don't know until the end. That's the fun part. But just preparing for this stuff in advance, knowing you've got someone in your corner fighting for you, advocating for you on like a calm, win-win demeanor. So that brings me into the next point. Mindset and how your representation works with other agents is huge. There are many different people out there, and some people are really like win-lose. I want to win. I want you to lose. I want to win. I want to win. I want to advocate for my client to the fullest. I want to be a knight in shining armor. That usually doesn't end super well. I mean, it sounds like a good goal and it sounds pure, but at the end of the day, it's not getting people what they actually wanted in the beginning, which is to purchase the home and to sell the home. And the other one where if you just don't negotiate at all, you're not willing to like do what they say, which we don't see nearly as often. It's a lot more of the like, I'm going to win, you need to lose. That sometimes happens. But the other one, just like constantly being like, oh, no, don't do that. No, you can always try. And if it doesn't work, then you can come to a mutual agreement. So the best way to go into this and the best mindset you should have as a buyer or a seller, and your agents, both agents involved should have, is that win-win. There's almost always a way to work it out. If buyer wants to buy and seller wants to sell, there's almost always a way to figure out how to get it done, whatever it might be. Just having that in it together, working toward the same goal mentality is huge. So when you're going through negotiations, keep that in mind. Take a breath, calm down, look for the win-win. There's always one there if you want to go forward. If you decide it's not the house for you, tell your realtor. That's a whole different thing. That's not a negotiation issue. That's a wrong house issue, and that's you need to get out of that situation, and hopefully you're still protected by a contingency where you can. And we want to avoid that at all costs. We shouldn't be writing up offers if you're not certain about the house. However, sometimes it happens, and you shouldn't be buying a home that you don't love. Ooh, question. I love this. What are some of the longest counter offers you've dealt with? And was it worth all of the hassle? Let's see here. Actually, I would say the inspection periods sometimes get to be longer than the counters. I did have, the longest actual counter offer I worked with, we started the offer process a year before we came to terms. And it wasn't constant. We made an offer in July, I think, of last year, and it was lower because we felt the property was overpriced. And then we kind of came back to it in the winter, and we were closer, but it kind of fell apart again. And then in May this year, or March this year, the home was relisted at a different price, and we had a week-long counter negotiation period there too. And we ended up sealing it up and getting it. Everything was great. So yes, absolutely worth it for that one. It's one of my favorite clients, one of my best clients. So always happy to help him. And then the other one where there have been a few where inspection is just really tough to get through. And it's always worth it. Anytime we get to help people achieve their actual goals, whether it's purchasing a home or whether it's selling a home they need to sell for whatever reason, once we get them to that finish line, it's so worth it. But yeah, they can be kind of grueling at times, and just maintaining that it's gonna be okay. Let's just take a breath, try not to think about it for a while, take a step back, and then everyone come back to the table with a new idea. You can usually get through it. I've only really had one go really desperately, terribly wrong. And that was the agent on the other side really wanted to be the win-win. Win. Knight in shining armor. Didn't go well. His client didn't get the home. That's okay. We sold it later, and someone got it for $2,000 more. So my seller made more money. All worked out. But yeah. Took 3 months longer, but it all works out in the end. I think that kind of covers it. If you have any other questions, please put them in the comments. I will always get back to those via type or give you a call and answer them for you. And if there's any topics you want to hear about, I'm always open to new ideas for a real estate basics topic. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question, and hopefully that cleared up some things about negotiations, the mindset to have during negotiations, and why you want to be properly represented during those negotiation processes. So you guys enjoy the rest of your Friday. Take care.